So I'm here to talk a little bit about the mapping of failures. A couple of people alluded to the steps of the process of entrepreneurship a little bit earlier. Rajiv talked about it, Jonathan talked about it. So I'm going to talk about mapping of failures, but even more fun, I'm going to take you through 24 ways to screw up a startup. Entrepreneurship is a process. Throughout that process, there are many points at which you can fail. There are also things that happen that are unexpected that may or may not be a good thing. I talked with an entrepreneur last week who said, my startup raised over $1 million. It was the worst thing that could have happened. Why? Just go ahead and shout out a couple of answers. They didn't need it. Anyone? High expectations. No plan. No plan. Went out and bought a Ferrari. One more time. Necessity is the mother of invention. So you're all right and you're all wrong. The key point with having $1 million of unaccounted for money is you suddenly have the opportunity to go in a lot more directions than you planned on. Suddenly, instead of being forced to go to your core path, to concentrate on it, you have the option to explore 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 different ways. The $1 million at the wrong time is a terrible thing for a company. So looking at the landscape of innovation, looking at the process of entrepreneurship, what I'm going to take you through is some of the myths of entrepreneurship. The 24 themes, but we're going to group them into 6 basic themes of how do you look at your customer and how do you group it all the way through the process. So you don't have to write all this down right away. We will come back to it, I promise, in more detail than you'd like to see. So quickly, the myths of entrepreneurship. People tend to have an idea of who an entrepreneur really is. They think about Steve Jobs, they think about Bill Gates, they think about Mark Zuckerberg, just a few that I can name, but what they don't realize is that there isn't a born entrepreneur. There's not a gene that makes somebody able to start a company to create a passion for change. There isn't a single individual that's responsible for entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, in general, is a team effort. Entrepreneurs are not the smartest people in the room. In fact, if you find the smartest person in the room, that person is probably going to go so deep into whatever their expertise is that they're going to lose you. Entrepreneurs are not all charismatic. They learn to give a pitch, or they come up with someone on their team who can give a pitch. But it's not necessarily going to be that person. Entrepreneurs don't necessarily love risk. They find ways of managing it, and they don't always thrive in chaos. So we think about entrepreneurs as having these characteristics, but in reality, an entrepreneur is someone with a passion for change, someone with that fire inside of them that they keep going, someone with a willingness to get up and speak about something that they're passionate about. It's also somebody who has to deal with failure every day in different stages at different levels. So let's look at some of the ways that entrepreneurs can fail. Is anybody familiar with the book Disciplined Entrepreneurship by Bill Olet? Most of this is taken from that. I had the opportunity to work with Bill Olet at the MIT Trust Center for Entrepreneurship on a project over the last 6 months or so. It was absolutely fantastic. The reason I bring it here is because you can look at entrepreneurship not only as a process, but as a step of process in which each stage is an opportunity for you to fail. And the first and most obvious way to fail is not knowing who your customer really is. So if you think about who your customer is, there's a lot of ways that you could think about that you're missing the point. You might miss the size of the market. You might choose the wrong beachhead market, the wrong strategic point that you're really good at. You might forget to think about future customers. You may have one customer that you're so excited about that not realizing that you need to think about customer 2, 3, 12, 25, 300. But knowing your customer is one of the most important parts of being a startup. Who is it that wants what it is that you're offering? I'd like to illustrate this, and I'll do this along the way with some quotes from companies who have failed. So Patient Communicator is a physician-designed cloud-based communications management for primary care physicians. And they lost sight of their customer, which is why they failed. According to what they said, we didn't have any customers because no one was really interested in the model that we were pitching. Doctors want more patients, not just an efficient office. You've got to look at what the pain points of your customers really are. If you're missing their top pain point, then you're not going to succeed. Even if you have a brilliant idea, even if you know this would help them, if it's not in their top pain points, it's not going to be a business success. So, continuing on with the themes of entrepreneurship, what is it that you can do for your customer? How does your customer get value from what you're providing? As you think about who the customer is, a key point of it is also why that customer is interested in you. So the question is, do you understand their competitive position and yours? Do you understand what the product needs to be defined as? Are you going in multiple directions? Did you get $1 million in funding that came out of nowhere and you decided to pursue multiple paths? Have you shown the customer definitively why you provide value to them? If you haven't, then you've lost sight of what you can do for your customer. And again, illustrating this, Unifio was a customer relationship tool, which lets users and teams have access to customer profiles on the web. And they had these fantastic ideas to where they were going to go. They were going to jump into the end users and the SMEs with plans to grow. But they couldn't empathize with big corporations and heard scary things about long sales cycles. Every other company that they've kept track of shut down or moved into the B2B space. They lost sight of who their customer was and what they could provide to that customer. Your third theme of entrepreneurship is, how does the customer get the product that you're providing? How does your customer acquire your product? Does the customer go out and purchase it? Do you have a direct sales model? Does the customer receive it through a distribution? Do you get web traffic? How do you reach that important customer? And even more than that, how do you reach a paying customer? In many areas, it's easy to acquire customers. You might acquire users, you might grow a community. But does that customer really want what you're offering? And are they willing to pay for it? So first, you need to understand how much of what you have or what you offer your customers are really going to want. You need to know when a potential customer becomes an actual paying, supportive customer who's going to tell you how good you are, who's going to tell their friends how good you are, who's going to spread it through word of mouth or other social media channels. And you need to realize how much it costs you in time or money or effort to get that paying customer. Everpix billed itself as the world's best photo startup, but it wasn't free. And when it entered the market, it was competing with some free efforts like Apple and Google and a few other very notable ones. The key point here was that they didn't feel they spent enough time on growth and distribution. Understanding where the customers get their product, how they were going to grow the company and the market base, and why customers would choose them instead of the free alternative was what ultimately caused them to fail. So moving on to theme number 4. Kind of goes back to theme 3. How do you actually get money? What is your revenue stream? Is it real? How big is it? What's the market? Where do you go for it? The key point to understanding your revenue stream is looking at what is your business model. Have you really targeted a market that makes sense for your product? Going back through the earlier themes, do you understand who your customer is and what value you're providing? And are they willing? Are they enthusiastic about paying for what you offer? Not all customers are created equal, so there's going to be a segment of the market that's going to be more valuable to you as an entrepreneur. Understanding which segment that is, which customers are most valuable to you, is going to go a long way between determining whether your business fails or whether your business succeeds. There might be times, and I think the theme that goes through this again and again is there are times as you look at these themes that failure is the right choice. The key is to fail as early as you can, as often as you can, and in the right time and ways. So as you look at these 6 themes, think about what entrepreneurs have chosen to do, what you've chosen to do in a passion for change or a passion for startups, and when is the right time to examine these questions? Do you really know who your customer is and what you're going to get? Stipple was an image tagging advertising startup, and they decided they were going to try to scale, but they didn't proceed fast enough. So their challenge was they weren't able, in their words, to get dollars flowing from the marketplace to line up with our expense structure. They had what they believed was a great idea. They tried to scale it at a rate that didn't keep pace with what the market needed or wanted. So the money was coming in, but not at a pace that they could cover their expenses. And ultimately, that led them to failure. So 2 more themes left. We talked a little bit about design earlier. We had a commercial from one of our sponsors in the U of M design group. How you design and build a product ultimately relates to how well you understand what your customer really needs. If you choose the wrong assumptions to start your design, you have a great, phenomenal technology, but nobody wants it, and you can't package it in such a way that people are interested in it, then you're out of luck as a business. If you have a great technology, if you have a great market, and you forget to ask your customers if this is really what they want and need, then you're still missing the boat. And finding out whether your minimum viable product is actually what the customers want, will use, and will empathize with is really important. FormSpring was a question and answer based social networking service. And what they wanted to do was to create a product that aligns with their customer's vision. The most successful products, in their words, execute on a vision that aligns with the product's and the user's goals. Seems kind of simple, right? But they failed to do it. And from one of the founders, I love this quote, "For the love of God, put on the blinders. It's the only way to build what you should instead of chasing others' ideas." Successful entrepreneurs, in one sense, have blinders on. They have to be very focused on what is their core product, their core strategic advantage, their core ability to enter the marketplace with something that's different, something that's unique, something that captures the imagination and the dollars of their customers. If they lose sight of that core, they lose sight of what their customer needs, it's done. And finally, the final theme about entrepreneurship is how well and how capable are you of scaling your business. Even the best business has to grow. You have to think globally very early. You have to think about what are the challenges that you're going to find in scaling. Talked earlier about entrepreneurship and scaling down big business processes. There are equal challenges with scaling up small business processes. If you scale at the wrong time, if you scale at the wrong speed, if you scale too late or even too early with the wrong amount of money, you might miss your market entirely. And the challenge to that is that the team that can create a small business, a successful small business, is not necessarily the team that you want to create a scaling business. The skills of a founder are not the skills of an operator. Operations, founding, one focuses very much on innovation, creativity, ideas, growth. Scaling focuses very much on operations, processes, predictable outputs, predictable team and revenue stream. If you fail to lose sight that scaling is a different business model than creating a business, you will ultimately fail. And group spaces is the example I chose for this one. They describe the sin of premature scaling. Too late scaling is just as much of a problem. It's understanding the market well enough to know what you scale and to know what you don't. So finally, just closing this out, the 6 themes of entrepreneurship. Looking at who your customer is, what you can do, how they get your product, how you make money, how you design and build it, and how you scale, is ultimately your opportunity to succeed or to fail at the right time. Thank you. It's been an honor to speak with you today.